Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar featuring guest presenter John Whiting, Head of Product Marketing at ISMS.online. We're also joined today by Brandon, who's an Information Security Lead Auditor and Executive Committee member at PJR. Please note that all attendees are going to be muted during today's webinar. If you have any questions for the presenter or for us at PJR, we encourage you to use the designated question tab within the GoToWebinar control panel. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to John. Thanks for joining us today.
Okay, yeah, thanks for having me. Good to be here. So yeah, excited to kind of go through and present, ISO 42001 and the benefits of where to begin. I think Brandon, you're going to go ahead and start with the first slide.
Sure. Well, thank you for joining us, everybody, this morning. It's a real pleasure to be here with you today to be able to discuss this exciting new standard that we have coming out. This is ISO IEC 42001, and this is going to be for the control of artificial intelligence management systems. So what we're going to talk about today, just to give you a little brief summary, is first we're going to give you a little bit of an introduction to ISO IEC 42001, and then we're going to talk a little bit about how you're going to harness the benefits of compliance from using that standard. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about starting the compliance journey with respect to this standard. So first off, let's talk about a little bit of an introduction to ISO IEC 42001, right? What is ISO IEC 42001 is probably the first question everybody asks. And in summary, it is the first internationally recognized standard for artificial intelligence management systems. So this standard is going to provide a framework that's going to guide organizations in not only developing, but deploying their AI technologies safely, ethically, and responsibly. So next question you might ask is, well, why does this matter to us, right? Let's talk about that a little bit. There are a couple of considerations that we want to take into consideration with respect to this standard. And the first is that ISO IEC 42001 addresses ethical considerations, again, not only in the development of AI technologies, which we are seeing is a very prominent feature today, and also the deployment of those technologies, right? So it promotes responsible AI practices such as fairness, transparency, accountability, and this helps to mitigate any of those potential ethical dilemmas and societal harms that come along with the development and deployment of those AI technologies. In addition, because it is an internationally recognized standard, right, it provides, as we can think about in the name, standardization and consistency, right? Standardization is going to ensure that our AI systems are developed, implemented, and managed consistently across different organizations and industries, which means this is a standard that, like many standards such as 9001, can be applied to many different types of organizations. It's not singled out into a specific type of organization. And this will help to foster trust among the stakeholders and ensure interoperability between the different AI systems that we're going to end up seeing in the future.
And I think one of the key things is that people are probably thinking are like, what are the fundamental principles of ISO 42001? As it's such a new standard. And like other ISO management standards, ISO 42001 it's structured in a very similar way. It's got the 10 clauses following the Annex SL format, covering everything from organizational context and leadership to operation, monitoring, auditing, and continual improvement too. So anyone familiar with 27001 is going to find that the structure of 42001 is actually quite similar. And central to 42001 are the processes of AI risk and impact assessment, which help organizations gauge potential negative impacts of AI systems on stakeholders and society at large. So the standard includes a suite of controls to mitigate these risks, covering areas such as resource allocation, system documentation, lifestyle management, and incident handling, and so on. So when an organization, and we'll come onto this in a little bit later, but when an organization is looking to implement ISO 42001, it needs to think about the selected controls list and beyond, and if necessary, and how to effectively kind of address all those identified risks appropriately. And some of the main things that kind of resonate through the standard as well are, responsible development and governance, privacy, transparency, fairness, and security. So those are a lot of the things to kind of keep in mind as you kind of progress with this standard.
So I guess one of the other questions that we might want to think about is how ISO IEC 42001 is going to impact the future of AI, right? And we see this, revolving around a central theme of global adoption and competitiveness. So being that, again, it is an internationally recognized standard, ISO IEC 42001 is going to allow companies across the world, all right, to be able to adopt, their organizations across the world to be able to adopt this particular standard. And the AI technologies that they're developing by providing a common framework that reaches, across international boundaries in order to do so. So, essentially what we'll find is that organizations that end up conforming to this standard are going to gain a competitive edge in that global market by being able to show their commitment to, the excellence in AI management. Let's talk a little bit about harnessing the benefits of compliance, right? So we talked a little bit about this just a second ago, but the competitive advantage that compliance will bring you is the differentiation in a market as a leader responsible in AI adoption. And since you are seeing that a lot of organizations are just beginning to adopt AI, that's going to give you a competitive advantage, essentially right out the gate. In addition to that, we'll also see enhanced trust. So, certification to this standard, like many standards, demonstrates your commitment to responsible AI practices. That's building trust with your customers, your partners, and even regulators. And regulators may be a very important piece in the advancements of this framework, as we see that regulation may develop frameworks that include certain requirements for the adherence to certain standards in order to demonstrate compliance with those regulations. So, and what that does is that also provides the organization with demonstrated accountability, right? And this shows that the documented processes and procedures are going to show that the organization takes an ethical and responsible approach to the use of AI. In addition, one of the benefits of compliance is going to be to mitigate risks within the organization. We know that there are risks that come along with the adoption of AI. And this is going to allow an organization to improve its risk management framework to include those risks. I've already started seeing it in organizations, relative to standards such as 27001. It's becoming a point where it's almost going to become unacceptable if an organization hasn't considered some of these risks as part of its standards, just based on the prevalence of these types of technologies and things within organizations. So this standard will help you identify and mitigate those potential risks associated with those AI systems. And some of those risks that we see that are becoming more prevalent are issues related to things like bias within AI's outputs, safety in the use of AI, and most notably also security in the use of AI. Protecting an organization's data and other information from being used in an insecure manner through the use of these AI technologies. Another benefit is it'll allow an organization to foster innovation, right? And so the deployment of AI technologies, when done efficiently and in a streamlined manner, is going to lead to a better use of resources within the organization. So we've seen this in the adoption of technologies such as ChatGPT and Gemini, from Google, or Copilot from Microsoft, making their way into the office space and really guiding how an organization pulls together its resources or uses its resources to complete its work. So having a framework that backs up your efficient use of those technologies is certainly going to benefit the organization and allowing it to foster innovation within its processes.
So I think obviously, as Brandon has just said there, plenty of opportunity for innovation, and perhaps you've seen this presentation so far and you're thinking this ISO 42001 is probably something you want to pursue. So looking at starting your kind of compliance journey with 42001, it's kind of important to assess your current stance. So you want to know what you want to achieve. So understand how your business wants to use AI and how you're going to get there, and how leveraging tools to get there as well. So I'll come on to that in a moment of how ISMS.online can potentially help you with this, but it's all about implementing tools to help you identify where your current AI practices stand in relation to the standards requirements and determining the gaps that need to be addressed. And I think it's key to kind of plan your path of how you're going to do this. So the first step is developing an implementation plan. So you could leverage a platform like ours, ISMS.online, a software platform used for managing ISO 27001, 100 plus other standards, including 42001. And you have a structured plan outlining the steps you need to take to kind of implement your artificial intelligence management system that aligns with 42001. And it's important to consider the timelines, resource allocation, and the training your team might need. Obviously, this applies to all standards really, but especially I think ISO 42001 as it's so new. The AI market is kind of hotting up. There's so much innovation happening in there, so it requires a lot of resource, a lot of kind of training within your team as well. And you've got to think about implementing and monitoring as well. So putting your plan into action, regularly monitoring your aims, and kind of ensuring continuous improvement. So on the right here, we can kind of see a little step-by-step action of kind of how you could address this. So, gap analysis and risk identification, that's a key one. Initially, setting up your implementation plan, and then, creating and updating all required documentation, which you can do in the ISMS.online platform that we'll talk about. And then it's also about educating your staff, right? So, as we said, a lot of this stuff coming out with AI is so new and it's moving very quickly. It's super important to keep kind of your staff up to date on what's happening and what your policies are, how you're ensuring you're kind of you're hitting those key criteria as we mentioned earlier, ethics, safety, and everything around that. And then looking at ongoing review and improvement as well. So making sure that it's not just like a static thing that you've implemented one time. It's constantly evolving. You're working on it. You're making improvements. You're making people internally aware of what's happening, and externally as well for auditing and when you're going for certification. And just touching on the continuous improvement one, that's such a huge one. I think we all know that ChatGPT I think came out in November 2022, and I think that was a really big push of AI to the public, as it had mass adoption, and it's had massive impacts on many different areas, and lots of other technologies have come up around the same time, similar tools, and I think as well at the same time we've seen on the news the issues some of these tools have faced through bias and all sorts of things. So that's why it's very important to kind of keep that continuous improvement piece in your mind all the time. And then just going on to the ISMS.online solution. So as I mentioned earlier, our platform we use to manage kind of all sorts of standards, ISO standards. ISO 27001 is sort of our bread and butter, but we've also built a solution for managing your ISO 42001 journey as well. And kind of when we put this together, there's a lot of things we kind of kept in mind that we thought were going to be useful for people who are approaching this. And some of the key things we want to focus and make sure it's front of your mind when you're pursuing this is clear objectives. So we provide you with a clear objective for each clause and annex control in there. So you have the best guidance possible and the best understanding going forwards. And we make sure we provide you with tips as well to help get you going. And then we also provide, a what we do statement as well. So it helps you define your end goal, like where you're going with your AI solution, like what you're trying to do with it. And then also how we prove it. So obviously evidence is a huge part of being able to say that you're responsibly managing your AI product or solution effectively. And you need to evidence that to your auditors, to your team internally, to your management team. So we provide a way to do that through our platform as well. And then as well as that, it's the how to do it. So we've kind of provided, additional understanding of how you can kind of follow kind of easy to follow steps with implementing your aims, and how to follow that effectively from writing your policies, giving you ideas on that, and effectively kind of teaming in the rest of your team as well to help manage this and make sure it's not a static system. It's constantly evolving, and you're making sure that you're staying up to date all the time. And then we also, one of our key features is a feature called the virtual coach. And that's what we include details on and what the auditor will be looking for. So when you're writing your policies, when you're working on your aims, you can use this as guidance for your kind of internal and external teams on, okay, I'm writing this policy with like the auditor in mind of what they're also going to be looking for as well when they come and view our platform, and when we're going for certification, if that's something you choose to go for. And then as well as that, we've also got supporting material. So we've got kind of a big array of materials that will help you understand the AIM system better. So Brandon, I know you spoke about risks earlier, and risk mitigation and things like that. So we've actually included one of the key things in our platform is our risk bank and risk management tool. And we've included kind of AI specific risks and mitigation strategies as well. So for example, you may have heard of there's data poisoning attacks, and that's basically where machine learning models, they're susceptible to data poisoning attacks where kind of a bad actor, they could inject malicious data into the training data set, and that can manipulate the model of your behavior. And to put that in kind of an example of how that could affect you, it's like, let's say you're a company that has an autonomous driving system that you've developed. That data poisoning attack could potentially manipulate sensors, inputs, and deceive the AI system. So, and that could cause accidents or safety hazards on the road. So it's really important to think about those things. Some other things we've got in there as well for you to consider as well would be data quality issues. Making sure that the data that your model is training on is good. So for instance, incomplete or biased data in a healthcare application could result in inaccurate diagnosis or treatment recommendations, and that can affect patients. So those are a couple of kind of real world examples where it kind of shows why it's important to be thinking about like how you're managing your AI system, what data is going into it, how you're thinking about the risks. And I think that's where we can really help with highlighting all of those risks and making sure that they're in the back of your mind and you're thinking about them and you're actively working on them and your team is aware of them. So yeah, those are some good features of the platform that can really help you with understanding and kind of getting a head start on 42001. So you're not necessarily starting from, say, like a blank piece of paper. You have a head start there. You have the ability to kind of lift some of these policies, make them your own, use some of these risk management strategies as well, and bring them into your system, change them, add to it. make it yours. So we basically will give you that head start and an easy way to manage all of this with your team.
Now, I think that one of the important things to talk about is certifying the organization to this standard. So while it's not mandatory, right, obtaining that certification to the ISO IEC 42001 standard from an accredited body provides external validation of your commitment to responsible AI. And one of the things that I think it's important to mention here, when it comes to certifying your organization, is that 42001, like many standards, can be integrated into a system with other standards as well. So specifically, you have very closely related topics that would allow for integration with systems such as 27001, 27701, and even ISO 9001. Which all touch on various aspects, of this particular standard and fit together fairly nicely. So you can certainly apply this across domains, right? Now, when you are certifying your organization, the first step here is to prepare yourself for certification, as John had mentioned, one of that steps is to engage with an external certification body, for instance, PJR, for this certification, right? And like many other, or like all the other standards, it's preparing documentation and evidence required for those certification audits. Certainly that falls into, the platform that John just discussed, as far as, helping to complete that particular step. So after you would prepare for certification, right, you would undergo a formal certification audit. If you are familiar or have been certified to any of the other standards that are currently, active and related to this, such as 27001 or 27701, 9001, then, this particular standard or this particular process would seem probably pretty familiar to you, right? So, a formal certification would be done by a certification body such as PJR, and this would address, again, any nonconformities identified during that audit process. Would very much follow the same similar steps that you would see where it would undergo a stage 1 assessment prior to a stage 2 assessment. And even before that, organizations, like PJR, can also do pre-assessments to give an organization an idea of where they currently are in the process, or where their level of readiness is to proceed on to those types of things as well. So, and then after the organization is certified, it's all about maintaining certification, right? And that's one of the things that I always kind of like to bring in as an auditor, is that sometimes it's easier to get yourself certified because you have steps that you need to take and gaps that you need to fill, and you kind of know where you stand, and you do a lot of work there. But then maintaining compliance with those requirements, takes some steps as well. And so this would be through regular audits, like surveillance audits that we would do, and also through the organization's own continuous improvement initiatives that it would establish through things like management review and its internal audits and such. So yeah.
So yeah, from my end, I really appreciate you kind of tuning into this webinar and learning a little bit about 42001, and then also our platform as well at ISMS.online. If you do have any questions about the platform at all, feel free to reach out to me. My contact details are on the screen here, and you can also reach out via the website as well if you need to. If you want more information on 42001 and our solution, we've got some downloads that share a little bit more detail in what we went into today on some of the features and things we can offer. So yeah, feel free to reach out.
Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to spend with us today. I think at this point, we would probably go ahead then and open it up to sort of a Q&A discussion. If anybody has any questions or anything they'd like to bring forward right now, we'll go ahead and see if we can get you some answers. I'm not seeing any hands raised. Okay. Well, if there are no further questions, not seeing any hands raised. Oh, wait, is that one? Then we could probably go ahead and think about wrapping up.
Okay, and just a reminder again, if anyone has any questions about the ISMS.online platform or anything, just, yeah, feel free to reach out, and yeah.
Same thing if you have any questions regarding the certification process, you know, and beginning the journey there, by all means, please feel free to contact PJR as well, pjr.com, and we'll get you in touch with, oh, looks like we do have a question. Marco. Go ahead and, oh, you're self-muted, Marco, so. Did you have a question? Farah Marco, was there a question? I noticed there was a hand raised. Sorry, Farah, if you were trying to speak, I know that I accidentally clicked your mute button, so I know you were self-muted. Well, okay then. Anybody else? Okay. All right, well, with that, I think we could probably go ahead and wrap it up. And if anybody still has any questions, feel free to contact either John or I, and we'll be able to get you in touch with the right people. Thank you for coming today, everybody.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone.